Well, Generation X's are now in their 40s and 50s and should, by rights, be well into a solid section of their financial planning timeline. I think many of them will be familiar with the famous 1980s Back to the Future movies trilogy. I think most people are, which popularized so many of the futuristic concepts, things like hoverboards and wearable technology, and some of that atrocious fashion that was actually coming true. So what financial advice would you give yourself if you could travel like Marty McFly from the Gen X cult film trilogy Back to the Future to let yourself know what you know now about financial planning? Well, it's something that Shaun, Levitan, Executive Director of Colourfield, has been thinking about, and he's in studio to share what advice he will share with his younger self. Shaun, good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me this evening.
Were you a big Back to the Future fan?
I still am.
Still are we? I mean, we've seen a so-called hoverboard. It's a French jet ski, water-propelled sort of hoverboard. It isn't really the real thing, but some of the things are coming true.
We're not quite there, but things like FaceTime we have today. We've got video chat. We've got all sorts of things that have come from the movie. We've even got those self-tying laces in terms of the sneakers. So we're almost there.
Oh, almost there. So, I mean, listen, traditional retirement thinking works on this whole concept of saving and investing enough over time to maximize a pot of money.
Yes.
So how would you take that into the realm of Back to the Future? What would you tell your younger self?
Well, I think there are two aspects to this. What actually prompted me to think about it and to think about a younger self was when looking at any survey or set of questions that was posed towards people that were in their 40s or their 50s or their 60s, and they were asked, what advice would you give to your younger self? On every single list that I encountered, there was an advice to start saving as soon as possible. It was unanimous. It was sage advice. And yet so often we hear their advice and we don't actually do anything about it. So I think I hope that anybody who hears it would actually take a double think and say, why would we get the same advice all the time from everybody surveyed? It's obviously got merit. So the advice we would give to everybody is to think about not only saving, but why you're saving. To actually think about that there is a reason for doing it. It's no different for why somebody may go on a diet. They know the type of body that they want to achieve, or why would you exercise more? In terms of saving, no one's going to do the saving unless they've actually got a goal that they're trying to move towards, and that really is the crux. That's the starting point. What is my goal? What
is your goal? And it's so important because it really is never too soon to start. And I almost think that people who only wake up in their sort of mid-30s or 40s to this whole concept, they have children that they could start teaching about this concept of saving as soon as possible. You've got a tax-free savings account now. Open one in your child's name and teach them about the value of saving. And who knows, they might actually look after you in your retirement. I know a lot of people actually pick on that. But what other advice would you give for your younger self?
So I think it would also be to have an understanding of what you have today in terms of your saving and what that actually means in the future. So often, you spoke about the pot of cash. I think one of the biggest problems we have today is this concept of the pot, and we try and either preserve the pot, which puts us into cash, which invariably is the wrong asset class, or it's this fixation of trying to get as much as possible without any sort of reference point. If you went to a doctor and they said you've got a high cholesterol score, or they told you you've got a cholesterol of 6, without any form of reference, you actually don't know whether 6 is good or not. The doctor would then tell you, well, 6 isn't good. You need to be somewhere in the 4 range, be even a little bit lower. Then you start to get panicked and you say, well, what can I do? And the doctor would say, well, you can exercise more, you can eat better, or you can take this medication which is going to improve your situation. I think a lot of people today are in a situation where they may actually believe they're on track for their savings goal, be it retirement or providing for education. But if they actually went and got a health check, they'd be quite worried.
We were talking about it with Blessing Utete earlier, about really understanding things like net replacement ratios and the like. And then another key that you pointed to here, and I must say I'm a big believer in this as well, is rethink that DeLorean. It may look fancy, but ultimately over time, things like big purchases on cars and depreciating assets, when you could be putting that into retirement savings, make a massive difference.
Well, you're effectively robbing your your future self by spending on yourself today. And I think if you could somehow have a picture of yourself into the future, if you could go into that DeLorean and see, okay, what does the 60, 65-year-old version of myself, if I continue on my current trajectory, what will I look like? What sort of situation will I be in? And you could look through into the future. I think you could be quite shocked. And I think that you would be prepared to make certain sacrifices today that almost seem not possible to help your future you. So as an example, if I was sitting age 23 and I put away 100 Rand a month until I got to retirement, with compound interest, I would basically be providing for 500 Rands a month worth of money. So for every 100 I put away today, I'm going to get 500 Rand a month in retirement. That seems like a good trade-off. If I'm sitting 10 years from retirement, for every 100 Rand I put in, I'm likely to get 60, 65 Rand back. So that's not the same sort of risk-return.
It's all about framing. It's all about framing and putting it in the right context. And then you can see compound interest.
Well, absolutely. Why would you give up? Why would you save an extra 100 Rand a month today, denying yourself some sort of luxury, denying yourself maybe it's 1,000 Rand a month different on a car? If you don't see what future difference that's going to make, you wouldn't do it.
So that's great. Now we travel back in time. Let's come back to the future, and perhaps you are one of those starters, but perhaps you've only woken up to this in your 30s or 40s.
Yes.
What then? I mean, it's difficult to play catch up, but it's not the end of the world, surely.
Well, there's a proverb: the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago. The second best time is now. And I think that's exactly the situation. It's not a case of, well, I haven't done it. Let's despair. I think people who have smoked their whole lives may decide it's age 60 they're going to stop now, and they're going to within 7 years do good things to their body as it all regenerates. The same will happen in terms of their savings. I think if you suddenly wake up and you get given a set of circumstances or the set of information that you need, you can actually start taking immediate action and bring things into line. That might be getting into the right investment strategy. That might mean saving more, maybe retiring later, changing a job, getting a dual income, making changes to your expenses every month and in terms of where you're spending. Maybe informing your children about how they need to save because you've made mistakes.
Yeah.
But definitely it's not a case of it's too late and I've got to stop. There's a university professor, Anthony Asher, who recently traveled from Australia to South Africa. He actually believes you should start saving later, that you should spend the first 10 or 15 years of your working lifetime paying off your house and all of those assets, and then start the savings procedure at a later stage.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I agree with him,
but there are different approaches.
But there's academic thought to lead credence to that type of thing, and it's definitely not a case that if you don't start in your 20s, it's too late to start now.
And I think now is the time to have the conversation. If we look at the old mutual savings and investment monitor, which came out yesterday, everyone's feeling the pinch across the various income categories. So that is generally the time when you can actually make these changes, when you can actually say, do I need that DSTV? Can I downgrade to an uncapped ADSL with Netflix, for example? I don't know, but now is the time to have those conversations. Shaun, unfortunately, we've got to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming on down.
Thank you for having me.
That was Shaun Levitan, Executive Director of Colourfield, taking retirement planning and investing back to the future here on Classic Business.